Welcome to Sparks 1524. I'm Nathaniel Miller. No Olympian wants to practice their craft in front of an empty stadium. Olympic fencers don't spend years practicing with their foil, jabbing and parrying and doing whatever else that fencers do. I don't know, I'm not a fencer, but those things with their foils or epées. Anyway, they don't practice for years to fight in an empty room. They practice for years so they can compete against the best on a world stage in front of an audience. Very few writers are content to just write for an audience of one. In other words, themselves. Most of us who are writers want to be writing for other people. We want other people to read our work. We want to make a little money off it and earn a living that way, but also for the sheer joy, just for the sheer joy of being able to tell a good story. The first three parts of this series, we looked at everything from figuring out what you want to write to developing characters to practicing and becoming disciplined. The last thing to consider, of course, is getting published. But how do you go about getting published? How do you turn your scribbles, your little scribbles with this weapon of mass communication, from an interesting hobby to something where you are sharing with other people? The first thing I would caution is don't put the proverbial cart before the proverbial horse. As I said in part one of this series, you can't really become a writer until you know what you want to write. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be practicing, but you need to know what you want to write. Don't obsess over getting published until you have something worth publishing. However, don't read what I just said as in me saying don't look into it, don't research it. Quite the reverse. A good writer who is serious about their craft and wants to get published will be researching all the different angles of publication they can find while working on whatever they're working on. Just don't make that search your priority. The digital age makes getting published very easy in many ways. It does give us an advantage because through the magic of independent publishing, anybody can get published. The downside is that everybody's getting published. So the vast sea of literary material out there is even deeper and more glutted with blah than it was before. So how do you make your work, your craft, your amazing story stand out from that blah? First off, you got to have something really good. You have to make that decision on when you think your work is ready to go for publication. Hopefully you found a good editor or somebody you can trust that'll coach you along and help you get better. You've taken the time to go back and do a few passes yourself at the story or whatever it is you're writing. But when you're ready to make that step, it's a risk. And your emotions, your ego will be on the line. Mine was, it still is every time I do something. Everybody's is. That's just part of this game. Well, there's two routes to take. Traditional publishing, independent publishing. 2 thumbs up. Traditional publishing is finding an agent, winning them over, getting them to look at your work and accept you as a client, and then they go out and do the legwork of finding a publishing house, a publisher, that will pick up your book and sell it. Independent publishing, which is the route I ended up following, you're doing all of that by yourself. Now, if you're finding an agent, this can take years. I actually set myself a 4-year limit on searching for an agent. I actually cut it off at 3 years, but that was because the pandemic hit and I was in the 18-month position that I was working up in Washington State had finished. So I figured, why not go for it? Give yourself some time. Agents are flooded with manuscript submissions. I mean, that is their job, but they are flooded. Most good agents do have a small team, but you may have 5 people working for you. But if you're getting 500 submissions a week, those 5 people working for you, including and yourself, the 6 people on your team, are going to be snowed under. Research the agents. In the description below, I have linked a website or 2 that can help you find agents. The big thing when you're researching agents is, first off, research the agent. Find out if they're even interested in the genre you're working in. Read the agent's bio. They will tell you what they're looking for. They will tell you how to submit the manuscript. Some agents actually have an online form you fill out. Some agents want you to email everything in. Follow their instructions. If you ignore their instructions, they're going to ignore your work really fast. One caveat to this. If an agent does not specify they want a cover letter, I would recommend putting one in anyway. That cover letter gives you a chance to to address that agent personally, right down to even perhaps addressing how your work fits in with things that they've already worked on. That might help catch their eye. But If the agent specifies, do not include a cover letter, don't include one. If they say to include one, include it. If they don't say one way or the other, I recommend including it. But if they specifically say don't include it, don't include it. Once the agent picks up your work, it's still not sold. They've picked up the work, they're going to assign you an editor who will coach you, but then they do the legwork on finding a publisher, they do the legwork on marketing. This is one of the reasons why authors get very little money, especially, well, new authors get very little profit. The publishing house and the agent are picking up the tab for the advertising, the marketing, the legworking, all those things that it takes to get this done. Registering any trademarks that you might need for logos or other things. Registering the copyright with the federal government. They pick up all those costs. The other route is the independent publishing route, which I chose to do because I had the time. And with my Navy background in public affairs and media, I've got some experience in marketing. I've got experience in doing legwork. I've got experience in graphic art. So for me, going the independent route was more feasible. I've also linked below a book that helped me significantly in setting up and getting independently published. Full disclosure, I get no money from this recommendation. This is not a paid advertisement. I found that book very helpful on researching independent publishers, and I did choose to go with Amazon. Wow, I write professionally? I did choose to go with Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. For my purposes, I found that their market saturation, their business practices, and the software online that I was using were the easiest to use. Independent publishing means you're going to take on the cost of registering your own trademarks. The Accidental Detective trademark, that logo, trademarking it cost me $2,000 because I had to pay for the trademark registration across several different markets that logo could appear in. Every time I register a copyright with the federal government so that they will stand with me in court if somebody tries to steal my work, that's $65. The cover art that I commission another former Navy sailor whom I know, and his graphic work is impeccable, that cost me $300 a shot. I'm absorbing all those costs, so I'm making very little profit. But if you're in it to be a published writer, you're playing a very long game. Independent publishing, as I've done, I got Proud Lion out the door when I wanted to in 2019, and Norfolk Murders out the door in 2020. I got Proud Lion out the door in 2020 and Norfolk Murders out the door this year in 2021. I'm not making a lot of money on them. Not right now, because I'm a tiny little speck in that ocean of black, that literary ocean that is just swollen and churning with offerings, some of which are lousy, many of which are very good. And it doesn't matter how good you are if you don't market, if you have no idea about marketing. I use Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. I use this YouTube channel, my own blog, sparks1524.com, to market, to try and reach an ever-widening sphere of people. I pay for advertising on some of the podcasts that I like to listen to. There's a marketing firm I'm working with right now that I'm not going to mention their name yet because I haven't decided to sign a contract for anything. And if I decide not to, I don't want to indicate that they're a bad company. I actually think they're very good. But if I sign with them, I'll tell you who they are. But I'm looking at, well, I'm going to be paying at least $500 to them for their work because they're going to do the work. They earn the money. I have to absorb that cost. Independent publishing is not a free shot to instant success. If you want to read more about this, my written column on this part 4 is also linked below in the description. Again, there's a couple of websites I have linked that will help you find agents, and the Amazon link for a book that helped me at least get started on independent publishing. Once again, I make no money off of any of these. This is not monetized at this time. Play a long game, but play it strategically. Be patient, build up that discipline, and that whole time you're working to get published, let that be time you're also investing in your writing and improving those works. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you on our next conversation here on Sparks 1524. As always, as I said, reach out to me if you want. Have a great day, and remember to always go and do great things.